Center doing some exit polling because we are, of course, in the hometown of Joe Biden here in Scranton, Pennsylvania. We are bringing you in for a really fun little interview that we're doing. You're getting the behind-the-scenes story here. You can see we're doing a very produced video here. I'm going to be interviewing one of Scranton's chief ladies. I keep calling her one of the Real Housewives of Scranton.
Yes! Oh my God, I love it.
This is Amber Viola, and you'll see I'm going to introduce her, and we'll be doing stuff. So you'll get to see me producing the video, and you'll also get to participate in the creation of the video while we're broadcasting on HAPS. So I hope you enjoy the broadcast. We are filming right now at the Mediterranean Garden here in Scranton. It is a wonderful, wonderful Mediterranean restaurant, and the food is to die for. So if you're in Scranton area, come by and get some pickup food here. Absolutely delicious. I'm looking forward to my second lunch. If you are joining us on Reddit, please feel free to come find the Scranton Fringe Festival and Pissi, Myles, me on Facebook or Instagram, wherever you find us on social media. Come and hit that little like and follow button. So you're going to get to see, we're going to start producing the video. If you have any questions, please feel free to type away, and my friend Simone, you may remember Simone from this morning, will let me know if some of your questions can get answered over the course of the interview. So enjoy, enjoy, enjoy. Here we go. Are we ready? Excuse me. Hi kids, this is Pissi Myles. I am reporting live from Scranton, Pennsylvania. It is election day. We are doing some exit polling and interviews all throughout the day. I'm here with the Scranton Fringe Festival. Connor, Kelly O'Brien, and Liz Bohan, and Simone, and Camille, all of my wonderful friends invited me back here to talk to some of the wonderful, wonderful folks here in Scranton, Pennsylvania, the hometown of Joe Biden. And I'm going to be interviewing, for my first interview today, a very, very interesting lady. She is new to me, but I'm sure that people around town probably know you pretty well. I am interviewing the amazing Amber Viola. She is a Navy veteran. She is a social worker, and she is the Director of Human Resources for the City of Scranton. Hello, Amber.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me.
The pleasure is all yours, Amber.
Yes.
How's your day going so far?
It's going great. I'm having a really good election day.
Are you?
Yes.
That's so good to hear, because so many people today have been anxious and stressed. How have you coped with the stress of this crazy
I've been
election?
driving people to the polls today, so I got a Bluetooth mic for my van, and I've literally been singing and driving people and like yelling out the window. And I've been having a really, really great fun time. People have been super nice, and the people I've been picking up and dropping off have been nice, both red and blue side. So that's how I've been keeping myself happy and entertained, is singing songs in the car.
I love that. And so you've been giving anyone who asks a ride to the polls.
Anybody who asks.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's such an amazing way to spend the time on election day, because I think everybody's looking for some way to participate, but some people feel so stressed out about it. It's nice to see kind of a very proactive but fun, uplifting, lighthearted way of participating.
At the end of the day, especially in places like Scranton, we're going to all be at the bar together, Mm-hmm. Our kids all go to daycare together and stuff like that, so you can't really separate it all the time, so we have to find a way to get along, and I think that this was just kind of a way for me to help anybody, whoever
Mm-hmm.
needs help, and that's kind of what it's all about. This is, go vote, because that's your right as an American. I may not agree, but I'm glad that you're getting out there and you're doing it. So,
before we get into the nitty-gritty,
yes,
what is your chosen bar in Scranton?
The V-Spot.
V-Spot?
Yeah, it's in walking distance from my house. Used to be able to smoke in there. You can't now. Otherwise, when I was a kid, Taints, Whistles, Hardware Bar. So.
You have a hardware bar in
We
Scranton?
do not anymore. We do
not. There's a really wonderful bar in New York City called Hardware, and it is a gay bar, and I love it a lot. It's owned by the same people who own Pieces and Playhouse, which are my two home bars in New York City, or two of my home bars in New York City, and I miss them desperately.
We need a gay bar downtown.
Are there gay bars in Scranton?
There's one, Border Scranton Music, 12 Penny. And then there's Heat nightclub in Wilkes-Barre. Heat is great. Heat is great. I wish we were having a gala this year.
Heat was. I used to perform at Heat all the time.
It's a good time. It's a hike though from here. So.
It's a hike from New York as well. So Amber, you are a social worker.
Yeah.
How did you get into the line of social work?
I was in the Navy and I became a Department of Defense victim advocate. So I worked with sexual assault victims and their families. Basically, from the time somebody was assaulted and they would like call our hotline number to the time when they didn't want me to work with them anymore. So it could go all the way up to court, or it could just go through me taking them to the hospital to get checked out. And in doing that, I was like, wow, I really want to help people. So I was like, okay, I want to become a social worker. I didn't really know what I wanted to do with that. I came back to Scranton, started going to Marywood, and I interned for Senator Blake. And he has his master's in social work, and he's a senator. And I was like, oh, this is it. This is it. I want to write laws that help people and actually like impact the real people on the ground and work with like on a larger scale of social work, you know, helping the whole community of Scranton or Lackawanna County. So that's where I am.
I love that. And so in your day-to-day now as the director of human resources, do you get to participate in a lot of the social work of the city?
Well, I get to help the people that are employed by the city. And I mean, it's just, sometimes it might just be helping somebody figure out like their vision insurance, or it's right now helping people through COVID and you know, checking up on their families, making sure people are okay and going to the doctor and getting tested and things like that. But it's just about, these are people that work here every single day. So you have to take care of them to take care of the city.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What do you think, I'm going to give you a 50-50.
Okay.
What is your greatest joy as a social worker, and what has been the biggest challenge for you? Challenge either emotionally or with the job itself or with the people you've interacted with.
Right. So joy is just that feeling of like having somebody call me and say, I figured it out, you know, I'm going to therapy now. I'm in counseling for like military sexual trauma. You know, my VA stuff was approved, or like just working here with the city when people, you know, call me and they say, hey, you know, my COVID test came back negative. Thank you so much for your help. Those things are kind of the biggest joy. Biggest frustration, I say, or challenge is I am a hugger and empathetic. So then I feel everything. So I take it home. You know, so I think for me that's the hardest thing is learning how to kind of separate everything, because you know I want to help everybody.
I can imagine. I mean, in a strange way, that's a lot like my job, because it's like, I mean, Lord knows I am not a social worker. I do not do anything half as difficult as being a social worker, but you working in a job where you're working so closely with people, you know, for me it's audience members, where there would be so many times when someone would come to my show and they would say, I've been having a bad week, or I've been having a bad month, or something really terrible just happened, and coming to this show really brought me out of that and gave me a moment of levity, like you made me laugh today. And that is the joy of doing something where you're working with people all the time. And I think for me the greatest challenge now is that like I always want to like hug people or grab them, or like it's like not in an inappropriate way, but I always want to have that very close relationship with someone, and that has been the challenge of COVID for so many people, I think. One thing I wanted to talk to you about, especially because you're a social worker, there's been a lot of discussion about the election. What are some of the issues that have motivated you as a voter this election season?
Oh, God, so many. So, obviously, LGBTQ plus issues. I mean, you know, we're fighting for our right to get married and our right to adopt kids. And so that's important to me. The black maternal death rate is 5 times higher than, for me, than white women, even if you're educated, even if you're wealthy. Black women are just dying. 60% of those deaths are preventable. So systematic racism is a very real thing, and it's embedded in things like our healthcare system, things like trying to own a home and getting a mortgage, redlining. So all of those issues are important to me, and I think we need to kind of have somebody who wants to address them, and not in a divisive way, but in a way that says, hey, this is what's happening. It's not okay. We have to work to fix it. It's not really blaming anybody. It's just saying we gotta fix it. So for me, those are some of the main issues. I'm a single mother, so the price of preschool and the price of daycare, I pay $600 a month over every month, and most people can't afford that. And that's not fair, and it shouldn't be that way, and people should have a right to be able to send their kids to school so that they can work and provide for their families. Just taking care of COVID and taking care of our elderly population, which kind of seems to have gone away. Scranton has a really big older population, so there's a lot of grandparents here, there's a lot of older great aunts and uncles and stuff like that, and this has really shown that we're not doing great in taking care of them. So that's something else that's kind of an issue for me with this election too.
With regard to what you were talking about when it comes to not only LGBTQ issues, but issues for people of color, we see a lot of statistics. You and I, as people of the LGBTQ community, see statistics all the time about women of color, and especially trans women of color, and the violence that they face in this country. Do you think that there's a way of conveying that those statistics in a meaningful way to people who are not members of the community?
I think just trying to raise awareness and spread the word. It shouldn't be something that we know about, it should be something that everybody knows about. I think we've surpassed the number of women of color, trans women of color this year who have died that we did last year. And, we're not through the year yet. And that should be, front page news. That you have a very small group of people whose death rate is way higher than the rest of the people in the U.S., and that's crazy. And, they're not doing anything wrong. They're being murdered, and a lot of the times they're being unjustly, outright just killed for walking down the street. And that's ridiculous, and we need to find the people who are killing them and make an effort to find people who are killing them, and make an effort to kind of PSA it out to everybody. Everybody should know that this is something that's happening and that it's not okay.
Exactly.
You don't have to like the way somebody lives, but just leave them alone,
Everyone has the right to safety, I think.
Yes, they do.
They do.
Yeah. You have the right to walk down the street and not be attacked or killed because somebody doesn't like what you do at your house.
Exactly.
I like what a lot of people do at
I've had some of your cooking. I know that it's nothing that I would want to protect. So I want to talk a little bit about, you are a Navy veteran,
yes,
which is so cool. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
How long were you in the service?
8 years.
8 years. Was that around your college years?
20. I went after I started college, so I went at 23. So.
Okay. So you were in the Navy for 8 years. At the age of 23. How has your service shaped your career going forward and your life going forward?
There's so many times I look back and think, I can't believe I did that. And so the military just really taught me that I can do it no matter what. And so for my life, that's just kind of what I've always been doing since I've been getting out. Is no matter what obstacles I'm facing, if it seems impossible, I'm going to do it, and that's just kind of what I've been doing, pushing forward. I have a daughter, so when I first got out the Navy, I was a single mom, newly single mom, moving from a different state back home, trying to get a house together. I started school the very next day, trying to do internships, all with, at that time, a 1-year-old. And so, I just kept telling myself, there was so many times that you didn't think you could do it and you did it. So you just got to keep pushing through and get to the other side of it. And that's really what the military taught me. Just an inner strength.
I don't think it's any secret to anyone on either side of the aisle on this issue that that veterans' benefits and veterans' rights have been severely hindered by for years and years, that
Right.
there are so many veteran programs that are just not meeting the needs of people who have served in the military.
Right, yeah.
What would you like to see change in terms of how the benefits of veterans are addressed?
It needs to be easier to access. You shouldn't have to jump through hoops. Every VA should have a military sexual trauma coordinator for female veterans who, it's almost the same as PTSD, just from sexual assault, sexual harassment. Those things need to be front and center. Over 22 vets a day kill themselves. It's an epidemic. Veteran suicide is real. It's gone up. They said maybe 18 to 20% over COVID, just due to the isolation and people having to just be home. It's not great with PTSD. So there's so many things that we could be doing to help veterans. Legalizing marijuana so that veterans can use it for PTSD, but at the same time, not taking away our right to own a gun if you legally have marijuana, because that's kind of what they're doing in a lot of places,
right.
which doesn't help anybody. I think that we need to try to look at more holistic medicine in the VA, yoga and meditation and things like that, to try to make a more well-rounded veteran. And our physical body is connected to our mental body, and we need to treat us as a whole and not just throw medicine at us and things like that. I think a really good way to heal after the military, after traumatic brain injuries or military sexual trauma or post-traumatic stress, is really just getting in there and trying a bunch of different things that all can, you can try yoga, you can try meditation, you can be on medicine, you can try group therapy, you can try individual therapy, and find what way works for you, and really try to figure that out and take the time and make the VAs accessible. Also, if you have a bad discharge, if maybe you got kicked out the military for drugs and alcohol or for your weight, who cares? You should still be able to use the VA 100%.
I think there's an argument to be made that someone who is struggling with substance abuse or who is struggling with their health in terms of their weight or physical health, probably has even more necessity for those services.
Because when they get separated from the military, they don't have access to anything. And sometimes you're starting from not a clean slate, from a negative, because now you have a bad discharge on your record. And there's places like McDonald's that won't hire you if you have a dishonorable discharge from the military. So you can't use the VA, and then you also can't find a job and get services and things. And you're right, those are the people that really need it the most.
And on top of that, we also have something that you were talking about that I find very interesting is there's, I think, a misconception about how many veterans come home from their service, whether it's active duty or not, with PTSD. And so many people are struggling to cope with it. Do you think that, knowing what you know from your time in the military and also from your time as a social worker, do you think that has affected your stance on health care and access to mental health facilities in terms of the election today?
Yeah, it definitely has, because I've seen, you can get PTSD from, you can walk outside and almost get hit by a car. And so for, say, the next few years, every time a car, passes by, you feel that wind, you feel that rush, you feel that anxiety. That's a form of PTSD. So it doesn't always have to be something huge that happened. So when I kind of saw that, I was like, oh, wow, more people should have access to these things, because it's a bigger population than I really thought of. And that's important. And instead of taking healthcare away from people, we need to be adding more people to healthcare and making it easier for people to have access, and making sure that healthcare includes mental health care. Because a lot of times it doesn't. It's still, people still fight with their insurance carriers. I have a friend who pays $99 a month for her medicine. On top of each appointment is $45 an appointment. So if you're going once a week, that's $45 a week that you're paying out of pocket, and she has insurance. And I think she pays $400 some a month for insurance. So you're paying all that money for insurance, still not covering mental health or your medication. We're doing something wrong.
I'm a type 1 diabetic, so you don't have to make a terribly strong argument for access to healthcare with me.
I had gestational diabetes when I was pregnant.
Did you?
Yeah, and my ex-husband, he said at one point, he was like, if we didn't work both in the military, I wouldn't have made it 100%. Me and my daughter would have died, because I was in hospital for over a month. I had great medicine, access to medicine, access to just not have to be at a clinic or something. I had a high risk doctor, I had a regular doctor, I was a doctor like every other day. But if I wasn't in service, there's no way that I would have had access to those things or been able to afford them. And, I probably wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today.
I mean, I know that struggle. I remember there was, at one point, I was between jobs, and I lost my health insurance for a period of 2 months. And over that 2 months, the difference between the cost of insulin on my insurance and off of my insurance, if I had gone another month, I wouldn't have been able to survive. I wouldn't have been able to buy my insulin. It was so prohibitively
We have people
expensive.
right now dying from that, from either not being able to afford it or trying to ration it. And it's not people who are old. This is people who are, 20s and 30s who are living with this every single day, and it's heartbreaking.
I agree. To kind of shift gears a little bit, but I want to stay in the realm of social work. I think it's so interesting. I have a lot of admiration for social workers because I think it really is a challenging job. And we're hearing a lot of discussion now about social work and how it can be used in law enforcement, which I think is very interesting. With the rise of the Black Lives Matter movement, and I know that there's been some contention about that overall. But part of what has been discussed is defunding the police, which I think sometimes, because of the wording of the title, can be misconstrued. What is your take on advocating for more social workers to be involved in these cases where clearly people who are in need or who are suffering from some kind of mental health issue face violence?
I think that people are being willfully obtuse when they hear the word "we defund education" all the time, and that doesn't mean that nobody's going to school, and people know that. But when you say defund the police, somehow it means like eradicate 100%. But if it's not every city, but if you look at some cities' budgets, which a lot of them are available online, you can see like a police budget, which will be, say, $100,000, and then you see the budget for the school district, and it's like $50,000. So when we're talking about defunding the police, you're talking about just moving money from one place to another. So why not fund education in your city so that kids who are more educated, kids who graduate high school, they have a less chance of getting in trouble, less chance of interacting with the police and having bad interactions. We need to make sure that we're funding community mental health programs, community medical centers for people to be able to go to the doctor and things like that. So if your budget for your city is eaten up by, you living in a small town and you guys having a tank and just a lot of things that you may need in other cities, but in your city you might not need those things. Then taking those funds and reallocating them to other things. School districts shouldn't be raising money to buy new books or to have enough desks. There's schools in Detroit and Chicago that don't have heat, they don't have air conditioning, that have lead in their water, so you can't drink out of the water fountains. They have mold. They don't have running water. They don't have toilets. So if you're going to a school like that, but the budget for the police in your city is, $1 million some dollars, but the school district isn't getting any money, that's what we're talking about when it's talking about defunding the police. It's not, we know that we need police, but if you call for a mental health crisis, maybe a social worker should also go with the police. I don't think it should become like a total, civilian matter. But why not bring somebody along who's trained to deal with people like this?
And who can help the police who may not have...
and who you do things like this all the time, de-escalation with no weapons. When you think about all your homeless shelters or your charity or your community organizations that work with like really affectedly bad mental health in a bad way, who aren't getting their medicine, aren't able to see a doctor, they're de-escalating situations without weapons all the time. And they're not getting killed every day and things like that. I mean, social workers are kicking ass all over the place. Let them be a part of your department. Let them help train people in de-escalation. Let people who are autism specialists come in and train you on how to assist with somebody who's autistic. How do you assist with somebody who's nonverbal? Because if a cop is just yelling at somebody who's nonverbal, they are nonverbal, so they can't say anything back. And now they're shot. They shot a 13-year-old autistic boy. because he just couldn't communicate in a way that they understood. But if they had somebody else there with them who was a social worker, who did work with autistic people, they could have said, hey, no, it's okay. This is why, this is how he's reacting to this. And I think those things would have definitely helped in situations like that. And that's kind of what I think we need to move towards, especially with community policing. We all should be a part of it together.
And to kind of add to what you're saying, it is my understanding, obviously I'm not a social worker, but I have actually in the past been a voice teacher, and I've been responsible for teaching young kids, including kids who are on the autism spectrum. And something that I think a lot of people don't always notice or understand is that people with autism react in a much more visceral way to loud noises or to commanding voices or to a powerful force. It's a without the training to understand, it can be a very difficult situation to manage, I think.
Yeah, I definitely think so too. And to give them a little bit of the benefit of doubt, when you're not trained in that, you don't know why they're not listening to you. And in your head, you might honestly be thinking, well, this person is just being defiant or, trying to do whatever. And you start to feel threatened because you don't understand, and so there's like a fear on both sides. So you have a fear on the police side because they don't understand, because they're not trained for that, and then a fear on the other side because it's loud and it's scary and you think you might die,
Yeah. So you are a Scranton native.
Kind of.
Scranton-ish.
Yeah.
I like that, Scranton-ish.
I was not born here because people will be like, she's not a Scranton native.
Where are you from originally?
So I am an Army brat. I grew up all over the U.S. The place that I call home is Goldsboro, Pennsylvania. It's about 25 minutes away from here.
So local. You are a local person. What is it about Scranton that you love so much? I've been asking a lot of people today, what is it about Scranton that feels so much like home to you? I feel like recently there's a lot of contention and a lot of kind of these things that pull people apart, and I'd like to find that unifying thing. What is it about Scranton that you love and that makes you want to come and help people here and be a part of this community?
People are nice. I've lived a lot of places, and and I would say like the whole NEPA area, because everything is so close, so you're 5 minutes down the road, you're now in somewhere else. But I think this whole area has a very homey feel. A lot of people's relatives still live here, parents, grandparents, and stuff. So, you have Sunday dinner with, your family, and a lot of people still live really close to each other. Mm-hmm. So you can have a whole family kind of in a block, and I love that. And I think that's something that I've always wanted, being an Army brat and moving around a lot. And when I left, I honestly didn't think I would come back. And the longer I was away, the more I was like, oh my God, please take me back. Take me back to Scranton, take me back to Goldsboro, take me back to northeastern Pennsylvania, please,
I think
and
it's funny. Yeah, I can attest to the fact I've eaten in many places in Scranton, and the food is good.
It is. It's good.
I have one final question for you before I wrap this up. This is a question that I've been posing to a lot of people on HAPS all day long, and to people I've been talking to in exit polling. This is something that I think is important to a lot of people, and that I'm interested to hear your take on it. Is it a hoagie, or a sub, or a hero? We're not gonna talk grinders, because that is nonsense, and I'm not going to acknowledge it.
It's a hoagie.
Okay. This interview is over. Amber, Viola, thank you so much for letting me chat with you today.
Thank you so much.
Is there anything I missed that you wanted to say before I?
Well, I actually wanted to ask you how you came up with your drag name, because I was trying to find a story. I couldn't find anything.
It's a really bizarre story. I had a friend who was who was a producer on the show Bear in New York City. It's a really amazing musical. And in the show was an actress named Missy Pyle. She is a very famous character actress from Hollywood. You might know her from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, or Gone Girl, or Galaxy Quest. She's been in all these movies.
Who was she in Galaxy Quest?
She was the alien that falls in love with Tony Shalhoub. Yeah.
Guys.
Exactly.
I love that movie so much.
It's such a good movie. And so Missy was doing a cabaret show at Joe's Pub in New York City, and my friend Pat would just go on and on and on about it. He was like, Missy Pyle this, Missy Pyle that, because he was helping produce the cabaret show. And so every drag name that I came up with, my husband shot down. He was like, no, I don't like it, no, I don't like it, no, I don't like it. So Christmas morning, we were driving to my sister's house, and I love Christmas music, like my favorite music. And I turned on the Christmas music, and my husband was like, can we please not? And I was like, it is Christmas, we have to listen. And so we got into like a little back and forth. And so I had Missy Pyle on the brain, and so I was like, you know what, you're turning me into Pissi Myles in a minute. And it stuck, and that's how Pissi Myles came to be. And after the impeachment hearings, Missy and I had spoken before, but after the impeachment hearings, she reached out, and we've been fast friends ever since. I love her to death.
That is so cute.
One of the sweetest, most wonderful, like, funny people you'll ever meet. So go and watch all the Missy Pyle movies. I will. They are so good. Watch Galaxy Quest.
It's the best.
Amber is absolutely right. It is such a good movie.
And Christmas music is good. And Sigourney was like a real good in that movie too.
So good. Sigourney Weaver is so good in that movie.
Computer.
I have one job on this
ship.
ship.
I have one job and I'm going to do it, okay? I'm sorry. Is it computer?
Kids, this has been a conversation with Amber Viola, and I'm so, so honored that she took the time to chat with us. Please come and find Scranton Fringe Festival and Pissi Myles on social media. That's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr, Blogspot. Wherever you look, we will be there. No more questions from Haps, right?
No.
All right, kids. Thanks so much for joining us for this conversation. I want to thank you again so much for joining me,
Thank
Amber.
you so
it was
much
a
for
pleasure.
having me.
Thank you, everyone at Haps. We'll see you soon. We have more interviews.